Hi there, I'm Nick Henderson. Welcome to my incredibly messy studio. Today I wanted to tell you about a book that's coming out that I illustrated, coming out in February. It's called The Dream. It is a wordless graphic novel with a story by Gideon Stair, and it's being published by Clarion HarperCollins. And I thought today I would talk to you a little bit about the process and how I went about making this book, some of the techniques I used, and just a glimpse into the life of a children's book illustrator and what we do, or at least what I do, from day to day. The story follows a girl unhappy with the way we treat the earth, who crosses paths with a mysterious wolf in the woods who feels just as she does. With the help of countless beasts from the land, sky, and sea, the animals of the world rise up to protect nature. The first step is to analyze and break down the manuscript. Every book I get always starts with a manuscript. It's my first impression of the story. It is the words of the book along with maybe a few art notes from the author or maybe the publisher. This manuscript, however, was a little unique because it is a wordless book. So the entire manuscript was a description of the action going on in the story. This was easy for me to visualize sequentially because I have to figure it out myself, reading between the lines of the text. After I get a good idea of the manuscript, I start brainstorming with really rough thumbnail drawings or really just doodles. These are typically never seen by anyone but me. I don't show these to the publisher. It's just a time for me to get a grip on the story and the pacing. The book was originally intended as a picture book, but as I read the manuscript and I started drawing out the pages, I imagined the story more as a graphic novel. There was just so much movement and special moments that I felt they would be lost in a typical 32 to 40 page picture book. So I started drawing it as a graphic novel with panels, and I still wanted it to have a storybook feel, so I didn't go too crazy with the paneling. I wanted a good mix of the two. So with that in mind, I started to develop my rough thumbnails into actually tighter sketches that I would actually show to the publisher. Here's when I start to think about the look of the characters and start thinking about the techniques I want to use. I really enjoy this stage because it's the most challenging. It's almost like a puzzle, especially when trying to figure out the pacing and how to connect different scenes. Since there are no words, there is a lot more pressure on the drawings to tell the story, so there was some trial and error trying to get them to flow and while not losing context. So while I'm doing the sketches, I'm also gathering references and inspiration. This book has a lot of animals, so I took many photo references at my local wildlife museum. I also took a lot of nature photos on hikes. The Nature Center in Springfield, Missouri was a big inspiration to me. I've been there a lot. I also took an unrelated solo trip to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And around that time, so I was really inspired by the wintry wilderness I saw over there, and I got a lot of good photos. I also decided to build a couple references of my own. For instance, there's a page where the main character is standing near a small rocky cliff staring up at the wolf, and I tried to find a real cliff near me, but nothing really satisfied me, so I built a model out of foam. I glued the pieces together, then I painted on a mix of sand and glue for texture, and I painted it gray. Then I took a bunch of photos with it, using different lighting setups, and that was the basis for the final drawing. I also built a bird's nest for another drawing. I simply walked outside and grabbed a bunch of twigs and leaves and glued it all together and added some eggshells for my breakfast. This was really fun. It actually made me appreciate bird's nest a lot more. It's actually a lot harder than it looks, and they don't even have glue. So once my sketches were approved, after a few rounds of revisions, I went ahead and started working on the finals. My drawing tools are actually quite simple. I just use 4B graphite in various sizes of mechanical pencils, an eraser, paper towels for blending, and Bristol paper. I like to work as analog as possible. I don't really enjoy working digitally. For me, it's always been more engaging to work with pencil and paper and a messy studio than it is to stare at a screen all day. So I try to keep the computer out of my process as much as I can, but sometimes I can't avoid it. So next was color. So initially my plan was to try and make my own watercolor paints from flowers, using the pigment, just because it was something I've heard about when I wanted to go along with the nature theme of the book. But my experiments didn't work out near as well as I had planned, and the clock was ticking, and contrary to my natural inclination, I decided to add color digitally using Procreate. Color-wise, I wanted a simple color palette. I wanted the texture of the graphite to speak for itself, and I didn't want it to get washed out. So I went with simple warm colors for day and cool colors for night. Once I was finished with those, I sent them off to the publisher. There were maybe a few rounds of revisions, and then my job was done. I had so much fun working on this book. It was a blast. It really challenged me as an illustrator, and I had the best time working on it. It is available for pre-order now, and it will be out officially on February 17th, wherever you can find books. You can pre-order it wherever you can find books, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. And I want to give a big thanks to my agent, Chad Beckerman at the Cat Agency. Of course, Gideon Starer for writing such a fun book to work on. And of course, the people at Clarion HarperCollins, Kate, Celeste, John. And to everyone else, I hope you all enjoy the book as much as I enjoyed working on it.